And this just astounds me. Despite all of the data, despite the fact that none of the victims at all are talking about that they want this, the fact that we're advocating what we think is best, despite the fact that it will have no depreciable effect upon the very thing that we are upset or afraid of. I'm reading another story about another attack on the gaming industry that just, well, excuse me, I won't say attack. I just, worthless gesture is more appropriate to this situation here. Massachusetts orders light gun video games pulled from state-operated rest stops. Massachusetts Department of Transportation pulled the Time Crisis cabinet and 7 other light gun video games from rest stop arcades along the Massachusetts Turnpike after the parents of a 12-year-old complained they were inappropriate, reports Boston Globe. The removal was attributed to the December 14th gun massacre in Newtown, Connecticut. So a parent of a 12-year-old, not a child of the age of anyone massacred, and not one of the victims' families. See, if it was the victims' families who were asking for this, I might be a little bit more inclined to say, okay, they themselves know what they themselves deem inappropriate, and I'm going to rest on that because in 9 out of 10 cases, most of these victims are not advocating for things stupid like this. But no, again, somebody not involved in this situation has decided, well, this is inappropriate. Let's see, most light gun games, being an arcade aficionado myself, tend to deal with pistols. Now, as I recall, Adam Lanza had, if memory serves, a pistol, possibly a Glock, as a backup that was never used. The AR-15 was what was used to actually harm the children. So how is this inappropriate? If this was elementary school massacre, hell, if this was any kind of school massacre, the light gun game, sure, you absolutely have a case there. But when it's a game that is built around shooting things like in the House of the Dead, unrealistic, cartoonish, oftentimes zombie, but most of the time monsterish characters who are so over the top that you cannot take this crap seriously. And Time Crisis, it hasn't even gotten photorealistic. The last Time Crisis was that I played was the newest one, in which case it was still polygonal graphics. Oh, anything involving any kind of shooting in any kind of medium or video game is now inappropriate because I say so, even though I have nothing to do with the massacre and therefore I'm butting in where I'm not welcome. The move will strike most gamers as completely tone deaf, considering that arcades have been in steep decline across America for many years, something that I think is sad, but I digress. And how much more objectionable content than Time Crisis or Lethal Enforcer is available on home consoles? Still, it happened. Yes, I mean, that's the other thing. These light gun games are still around. These light gun games are still readily available for purchase. What, is Massachusetts going to ban any and all light gun games? Wii's got a few light gun games. I think Wii U even has one where you can put the tablet on the little, fixture onto one of the guns and then use that as a crosshair. The Globe says Andrew and Tracy Hames visited a rest stop in Charlottetown, Massachusetts, heard gunfire rattling off the walls, and wrote the state the state's DOT commissioner, Department of Transportation. Being a no-lose political position, not to mention a game like Time Crisis can pull in $7 a day at a Mass Pike rest stop. He ordered them removed. We were struck by walking into a state-owned rest stop and within an hour's drive of the new town and seeing and hearing life-sized mounted machine gun on a video game, said Andrew Hamans. Considering it's New England, 6 states, which would be a collection of countries in most any western U.S. state, practically everything is within an hour of Newtown, Connecticut. Bottom line is, I think that that there isn't a person who doesn't believe that there isn't too much violence in our society, and games can glorify that. Oh, screw you, Richard Davey. The State Secretary of Transportation. A video game in a public space can be used by anybody at any age. Yeah, that's where my little talk about parental and personal responsibility comes into play here, doesn't it? But oh, no, we can't blame an actual responsible party in these kinds of situations here. No, we have to blame something completely innocuous that everybody who has no research and no data is saying is connected somehow to this kind of psychomaniac culture that we're suddenly dubbing everything. Now everything has to be questioned, and everything does need to be questioned. But when science continually shows there is no link between violent media, violent video games, and actual harm to other human beings, you gotta stop. Otherwise, you're being a bully to something that is not a problem and trying to fix a problem that is non-existent instead of actually going after the actual problems in this society. I may have changed a lot of my stance on guns and gun ownership, though again, I have no problems with people having pistols and hunting rifles, but semi-automatic weapons and sniper rifles, you can screw right off. And I may have even started to sort of rethink a bit of how I look at society now. That doesn't mean that I absolutely buy into this fear-mongering, this baloney, these superficial gestures to fix problems that aren't actual problems. I'm sorry, it's not that I'm a gamer. In fact, I'm actually walking away from gaming, for those of you who've been following my channel. Getting a Wii U is my last console, and maybe I'm glad I did. Because if the government is looking at taking a greater stance on censoring video games and basically screwing this medium over, then I don't want to be around to play the games in the aftermath of all this finger-pointing and all the concessions that the gaming industry might have to make, even though they have no proof. They have no science. They have no link that these video games have contributed in any way to our culture, our society, or what the acts of people who have gone off the deep end has done. Oh, I suppose Missile Command inspired Ted Kaczynski to make all those bombs and send those bombs off to everybody, right? I mean, it's got explosives in it, and it's got missiles raining down on a metropolitan area, kind of like Ted Kaczynski's attempts to blow up certain parts of metropolitan areas and blow up certain parts of actual people that he disagreed with, who he felt was part of the system. Because remember, the city is part of the system. Therefore, Missile Command must have influenced Ted Kaczynski into doing what he was. No, wait, no, it's Nintendo's fault. That Bomberman taught Ted Kaczynski that when life gets you down, build a bomb and blow up any obstacle that you see fit to blow up. Ah, it's so simple. How could I not see it before? Maybe because that's ludicrous. Stop it! Just stop it! This is not the way for rational adult human beings to conduct themselves. This is not the way to create a bigger and better society. If anything, this is ignoring the actual causes for what happened with Lanza. This is ignoring the actual consequences and the actual things that contributed to all the other cases out there of people who've done terrible things to other people en masse. And in some cases, there is no cause. The person themselves is the cause. And we're not even willing to blame the person themselves when they are clearly the person to blame, clearly the cause of these things. You're losing your minds, America, and you're making me lose it right with you. Because, as I said, everybody's wanting to feel like they've got a moral high ground. Everybody wants to say that they are right, and it's not just on the internet. They want to say that they are right and enact laws, right or wrong, that support them so they can stand back and say, I did something. No, you didn't do something. You made a bad situation worse, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. Both sides of this. This is not going to solve anything. If anything, this is almost political correctness amped up to 11. And this is... You're on your own. I'm sick and tired of talking about this. I'm tired of bringing my research links to my main research down in a playlist on my channel here, just in case you think that me constantly talking about one of the latest academics to say that there's no link between violence and massacres out there. And you can see that there is no link, and we're wasting money, we're wasting time, and more importantly, we're wasting resources that could be better allocated to fixing the actual problems in the society. And instead, we're trying to find that link that we're so sure exists. There must be an influence. Violence has to influence us because we're all puppets. We're all puppets to media. We can't think for ourselves. We have no morality inside of ourselves. It has to come from outside. And if we're fed a steady diet of Arnold Schwarzeneggers and Sylvester Stallones, we're going to become serial killers, despite the fact that doesn't ever happen.